Oh, there we go.
All right, there we go. I'm so excited. I don't know
Me
why I'm so
too.
excited. This whole series actually though has me excited because of just like this new format we're doing. The podcast is like
Mhm.
allowing us to like sit in a subject for
Yeah.
more than one, episode. So
Yeah.
it's kind of delicious. So I have the pleasure of introducing my amazing, beloved, Shaping the Shift audience to another amazing, beloved human being who goes by the name of Maimouna, which I think is such a beautiful name. Is the last name, I've always wanted this, Sene?
Sen.
Sen.
Mhm.
See? We're going to be talking about language today because I just butchered that last name. So
No.
we're going to be talking about more about that. But Maimouna is a traveling human being painted with complex colors and shaped by multiple lenses. And I'll add to that just a multifaceted creative that, she gets to define in her own right and express in her own right in these beautiful ways. And also a fellow Leo, which, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're still in Leo season. We might as well ham it up a little bit right
Leo
here.
season.
When does Leo
Okay.
season actually end?
Never
It
really,
never
but
really ends.
I don't
And
need to know that.
no, it's not. I mean, for us at least, right? But so you and I were having a conversation a few days ago, and it was one of those moments I get as a creative myself where I'm like, oh, I wish I was, recording this
Yeah.
because Shaping the Shift is all about helping us all to understand and navigate complexities with joy, with pleasure, and not kind of this sort of fixed, hardened idea of what things should be, but this more shift shaping idea. And so you and I found ourselves in a conversation about language and love. And so it makes sense that I'll start off with this question for you, which is what is your current living definition of love? I say that because it can change by tomorrow. But today, what is your current living definition of love?
Um, I think it's very difficult actually to have a set definition of love. And I think we can predominantly all agree that love has no set boundaries and translates and looks different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very moment, interesting because ever since we've had our talk, I really tried to live every day with a more loving intention and try to focus on it and see what it brings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing is very clear to me, and that is that love is so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
It shows up in so many different ways, in friendships and romantic relationships, in nature. A very good friend of mine said, love is God. Love is a relationship to God,
Mm-hmm.
which to her, it was the strongest that existed.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was thinking about it and thought it was nature too. And I can only agree that love, I mean, nature is the epitome or literal embodiment of love.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, flexibility, diversity, and
Mm-hmm.
translation to it could be anything. Um,
I love that. I love the introduction of the word diversity to the conversation about love because for several reasons. One, because what specifically was exciting in our conversation was language and love.
yeah,
And there's two things racing through my mind that I hope I don't forget because I can get so excited that I'll forget. But one is that you brought up the diverse ways love is expressed and shown to us and the diverse ways that we express it and show it,
yeah,
which I think I will speak specifically for American society because I love that you and I can have global conversations and that we, you have family and all over the world. You are from different parts of the world. I am from an immigrant parent, and so we have these perspectives. And I love to travel that are from outside, so we know how love is demonstrated here in America is pretty unique compared to how it's demonstrated in other parts of the world. So that's one thing. And one thing we can say about that, I think sometimes, is that it's very limited sometimes to romantic love or parental child love, right? Those are the types of two loves that gets play here, right? So I love that you brought up friends, nature, pets, like that there's so many other ways. But I find that here, if it's not one of those two ways, we can behave as though love is not everywhere. And that we just don't have love, right? Because it doesn't come in these two forms. That ties into the heart of our conversation, which is that we only have one word for love in our language, in the English language, and that does not allow for us to explore the complexities and the diversity of love. So can you say a little bit more about that? Because I thought that was so fascinating, something I had never thought about, and a huge problem that we have here.
I mean, it was, I literally, as you were bringing up your first point that you were making about that love in the United States is so restricted to parental love and romantic relationships. And it was like, yet we love everything here.
Yeah.
Because we only have that one word.
Yes.
So as you know, I speak multiple languages and my native language is German. And I feel as if we have more ways of expressing our love for each other without having this grand declaration of this is eternal love forever and ever and ever and ever. Yet without taking away from the importance and true love that we share for each other. So it just comes in different levels that are, I think, very important, accepted, and that is okay. They have boundaries within each other, but they don't take away from each other simultaneously. So I think that is a part that is very important, that we have a possibility of expressing ourselves, because here I find it difficult to entertain when somebody is declaring their love for me, because I'm doubting whether they know what love is, since there is only one word to express it. And if you love the cat down the street and the old lady you just greeted in the grocery store and the I don't know, bag that you saw in the store last week, then and your 17,000 friends, how can you then
on social media?
On social media, how can you then equally love me? So
when you brought that up, it was because, as someone who's, practiced therapy with people for so long and seeing the pervasive nature of loneliness, and this helps to me, this understanding that you're breaking down explains so much of that loneliness, because I find that if it doesn't come in those two forms, that's one, right? Then the other forms are viewed as lesser or not as strong or not as powerful or not as real even. And then, so that makes the person feel like they have a lesser love or they don't have enough love. So there's this lack mentality that comes with love for them. But in addition to that, then there's also the questioning of love that is happening, but they're not, we didn't have the language for the fact that it was happening because the word love is overused here. And there's no multiple ways of expressing it or saying it that can help somebody feel very clear about the type of love that they're experiencing, right? So what you're saying is like this sort of dilution of love, right? This overuse, right? And so I had this moment the other day where I realized, like, when I talk to someone who's not from America, and they're told I love you, they don't ask, why do you love me? But I noticed that a lot of my friends who are told I love you here will say, well, why do you love me? They want to hear the evidence and the reasons. And that could be for a lot of reasons, right? Because we definitely attack self-esteem here pretty brutally. And like, that's kind of what capitalism does at times. It can really make you feel like you lack something, and therefore you want to know why the person loves you, maybe so you can keep doing that, or maybe so you can look out for other people who are doing that. I mean, just, it's interesting, but I had never considered it until I had a conversation with someone outside, and they never questioned it, because when they used it, they meant it. It was like reserved for when it was 1000% what it was. Does that make sense? We're talking about something so nuanced, but it's nuanced and it's almost intangible, but it's very much felt by people here that they aren't sure they can trust the substance of love. And I'm really thinking about how the use of it in language contributes to the actual feeling of, am I experiencing love? And why so many people struggle in relationships to feel secure in it. Does that make sense?
I think it makes total sense, because so the reason why I think it is probably easier to understand the concept or the definition of love, or what I hear when you say you love me, in a different language, or at least in the languages that I speak, I think is a lot more clear, as I said, because there are these levels, and they are, and we have a somewhat in common definition that we all agreed on, and we know in what realm we're moving depending on the stage level, so to say, of love. Whereas here, I think in order to express the love for each other, we first have to define what is love for you and what is love for me. And since normally in romantic relationships or dating specifically, I mean, I don't know anyone who goes into getting to know someone and starts off with, okay, can we define what love exactly means for you and what it means for me? And therefore, once you express it, I can actually understand what you mean. So I think that maybe an issue as to, or a contributing factor as to why it's so difficult to understand here.
Is there isn't a socially agreed upon definition.
Yeah.
So then each unit has to kind of go through the process of figuring that out for themselves, if they even ask the question, if they even sit down and decide to prioritize asking that question.
I think so. At least that's something I feel like what I've noticed, because I think a lot of people are confusing love with being infatuated, or infatuation in general.
Or care, you know, like the book All About Love is like people who take care of me or do things for me.
Yeah. So therefore they don't, it's difficult to understand what is meant here, really.
I feel so much compassion around this, because the angst or the suffering I've seen people feel around feeling insecure about love makes a lot more sense to me when we have this conversation, because it is not, we do not have a socially agreed upon definition of it. You know, America prides itself on being a melting pot where there's all these different perspectives that come in, but they're never the actual work to integrate those into a shared understanding is never really done. We're just kind of, I remember somebody saying we're less of a melting pot and more of a lasagna, like we're just kind of layered on each other, you know. But so it's that sounds good theoretically, but then it doesn't translate to like an actual praxis of love and communication and how to be with each other. And it also I keep going back to this point about diminishes the many ways people could experience love in a lifetime. Like maybe not everyone is meant to have or experience or desires romantic love. Not everyone's going to be meant to experience love in the form of a parent and a child. And so what does that mean? Are we saying that those people are ever going to experience love in their lifetime? Like that's just completely false, and it completely erases whole experiences and whole, you know, types of love, which is just tragic, actually. So I'm hoping this conversation, one, empowers people to feel empowered to ask that question and set their own definitions like we do at the beginning of the episode, and to change them as often as you need to for the person that you're growing into. And amongst your circle, why don't you all come up with a shared definition? We may not be able to get the entire country to do it at once, but amongst your family, amongst your peer group, amongst your friends, it will be amazing to really talk about the different ways you feel and experience love, and kind of flip this thing we do in American culture where we say, I love everything. We could just say, I also receive love. through many things, right?
Mhm.
Like I receive love through that pet, or I may feel love through this meal, or I may feel love through, but there's a way to invert that, I think, that is a lot more empowering and fulfilling than the idea of, it kind of just being just all over the place and very undefined for us, right? And again, I don't think defined has to mean in a fixed way. I
Right.
think it just means, let's be clear about what that will feel like or look like for us in this moment, in this time, and in this situation.
But I think, like you said, or like we started the podcast, also language really would help.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a good idea to utilize the word love less and start implementing words such as like, or I adore, or I enjoy, or I cherish this, whatever.
Cherish is a beautiful one.
Appreciate.
Enjoy.
Yeah, there are so many ways, I feel, instead of loving everything.
I love that. Like, adore, enjoy,
Yeah.
cherish. These are beautiful, and they're underused because
They are.
yeah. Can you tell us some of the ones in German? What are some of the words that you all use?
I mean, so for example, I think what is very beautiful with in friendship, we say "Ich hab dich lieb," which is more like I have love for you. And then we would say more, and I think it's similar in French as well, where it's more the I have to visualize everything where you have like
I see the
love
cup
for someone. And if you like them more, then you just add a word as an exaggerate. I have a lot of love for you. And then so the full word of I love you in German would be Ich liebe dich. But then sometimes we can joke around, and I think that's also slightly a little, we do it in English too, I think, where we shorten the word, but then it still has like a little tear to it. And then we take off the E at the end and say Ich lieb dich, or something lighter, opposed to the grand declaration. So I have some love for you, Ich hab dich lieb, is more common, definitely, and is also more accepted. And but we definitely, I think, start off with simply saying I like you a lot.
I like you a lot.
And that is completely okay. And
well, I was about to say, the fact that that's okay, right? Like that's the other thing. So that just kind of opened up another little can of worms, which is that we can feel love deprived. And so there's this sense of urgency to hear the word and to say the word. Particularly, I would say in romantic relationships, there's like a sense of urgency. And then if you don't say it back, or because you are moving in these tiers where you're like, oh no, that's like the sacred word we use at a very sacred point, but I'm using like and adore and cherish and enjoy. And the person, because of we're a love deprived, society, really wants that word. I think I want to highlight that because I just done a lot of therapy sessions, y'all. I mean, I'm just really just teasing this out for my peoples, because we'll be in a rush to hear that word. We'll be in a rush to say that word just for the placebo of claiming it somehow or hearing it. But we don't have a tolerance within our bodies to sit in our bodies and like literally allow that to naturally and organically unfold. Psychologically, we feel tension. Emotionally, we feel tension, or like something's wrong with us the longer it takes someone to say those words. And we invalidate the other things that they're saying about their experience with us and how much they enjoy us and all these things that are so beautiful and yummy to sit with and digest and hear as well.
Which is so crazy to me, because again, to me, love expresses itself in so many ways that are nonverbal. So to put this focus and this weight on just these words is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many opinions, but I'm trying to because we're such a baby country here
Uh-huh.
and such an experiment
Yeah.
in humanity, right? Like again, there's a lot of theory in America with very little praxis at times.
Mm.
So the fight for justice, the fight for equality, all these fights are to make it live up to what it said, right? We're
Mm.
good with words. We got a whole Declaration of Independence. We got a whole Constitution. We're great with saying the things, but are we the things?
Yeah.
That is that is a that is an internal battle within America for sure, right? And
Yeah.
that what's happening as a country is happening to us as individuals. And so one way we start to change our country is by changing ourselves as individuals, right? We want
Mm.
to not just say a thing, we want to actually constitute it. We want to be it. We want to be that. And we may want to hear that first, but we have to ask ourselves, are we being that? Are we offering that? Is
Right.
that a commitment, something that we're committed to? Or is it just nice to hear, which is not loving
Right.
for the other person,
It becomes very transactional easily.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I noticed here too, where certain sets of expectations are being expressed and they're like, well, I do this for you, so
Mm-hmm. So why don't
I should
you?
have love in return.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm thinking, you should do this because you want to do these
Right.
things and not
Right.
because you're expecting anything in return. If I genuinely try to do something for you, I
Mm-hmm.
try to do it with the intent of love, or because there is a need, or it's
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling a different purpose than me having an expectation at the end of it. I can, so that's, I think,
That
people
transaction
are
piece.
misunderstanding love for as
Well,
well.
I think what we're showing even in this conversation is that people are living out America's true values, not the espoused ones. Like we are actually a reflection of the
Mhm.
actual values of this country, not the ones that it says it has, but the ones that it actually practices. For example, like I do all these things, I should receive a thing. That is literally capitalism. Like
Yeah,
we Americans work without joy. We
yeah,
do a lot of things without joy. And so the idea is if I do, because we're told that from school, if you do this and you do that and you do this and you do that, then you'll get this. You
hmm,
go to school, you get good grades, you let the teacher like you like make sure everybody likes you, and then you go here and then and then you have great life, right?
hmm,
Which this generation, this new generation, like I interviewed with my daughter, they are like, they're calling bullshit, thank God. But that is really, we learned that from somewhere. We learned that in the
yeah,
systems. We learned that in the schools. We learned that in the homes. We learned this concept that if I do good, I get a treat,
hmm,
right? If I sit in school and I put my hands right here and I don't move, I get a treat. Like we're literally trained into that. So of
yeah,
course, as we become adults, that is what we know love like
to
to
be,
be.
yeah,
It's really again, I can't think about it without having deep empathy and deep compassion, and it explains the pervasive anxiety, the
yeah,
pervasive um sense of conflict we have around belonging to each other. We're at war with each other constantly, but there's no sense of belonging to each other. There's no sense of what that really means. And one thing that I loved about when you shared that there's different words for the different tiers of the different ways love can show up and be expressed is that that alone dictates expectations. So
hmm,
I know if you use this word with me, that the expectations align with that word, as
yeah,
opposed to if I just use one word for everything, where do the expectations lie? You and
right,
I could say that to each other and then have two different sets of expectations here because we use the same exact word with no like
yeah,
context or
common ground
Mhm,
also,
mhm.
very much so.
Yeah, yeah. And I would like to believe, here's where I get super hopeful.
Hmm.
Or as my daughter said in the last episode, love should be aspirational.
Hmm.
I know. Oh yeah, I have to let you listen to
Hmm.
that one. She had some good ones on that episode. That I want people to listen to this episode and really begin to, one, believe that they can change their lives just by being open to the different diverse ways love can show up in their life. And they can name each expression something different and enjoy that. But I also want them to know that we can change this country by doing that. You know, that there's that we've any change in progress this country has made has been because individuals decided to hold it accountable for its practices and to practice it until it became, you know, evident, right? And so in your everyday life, with the people around you, with the non-humans, with the earth, with water, with fire, with air, how can you demonstrate and feel and receive and express in the multiple diverse ways that love can exist in a tangible way, so that it is substantive, it is not transactional? How can you give, like you were saying, because you want to, and not out of this sticky, agitated feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm going to not belong, I'm going to not be loved, right? And that takes some work on the bodies, on the nervous system, that takes some work on, you know, really centering in self. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but we do have a lot of the tools, and we have a lot of great people out there who are supplying us with tools, and we'll share some of those resources in this episode. I think that would be important, because we probably already done trigger people's nervous systems with this.
I know, right? Before I forget, I just want to throw very important to me, at least, a word in there that I think acceptance is very important at this point, because I think it's so important that you said people have the power to change how they want to approach love in general, and you encourage them to utilize different language in order to, you know, make it more valuable at the end of the day. So but also acceptance is very important, and to not let yourself get peer pressured into loving things. There are two examples. One that we talked about, where I was expressing myself that I felt peer pressured into loving or reciprocating love, especially because I was told that my other person was feeling vulnerable and needed me to say it in order to feel comfortable. And I thought you came up with something so beautiful that I haven't thought of. Where you allowed me to see a perspective of where I can create some space to breathe before I respond. And then also one very not like banal, I don't know if that's a word in English, but
we'll take it.
One stupid example: when I first moved to the States, I'll never forget how my family and me took a vacation, and we walked past the mall, I think somewhere in Miami, and I looked at a nail polish, and the salesperson immediately jumped on me and goes, "Isn't that a beautiful color? Don't you love it?" And it was really a peer pressuring moment, because she kept staring at me, and I'm like, I love it? I don't know. So it's very important that
oh, I love that. We not feel peer pressured into.
And we need to
that.
We have to, I think acceptance is where we have to really, really start, even if we're not immediately able to implement other new vocabulary. At least we can accept to pause, and we can accept when we hear somebody else that to go at their own pace and not immediately.
And to be brave enough. To be brave enough to be like, I mean, I like it. I think it's awesome. You know? I like you. I think you're awesome. I love that. And I think that acceptance for sure extends to not judging ourselves so that we won't be peer pressured, right? Like, even if someone's judging our non-reaction, we have a right to that pause. We have a right to accuracy in our language. We have a right to accuracy in our feelings. And so taking that pause can help us not to enter into agreement that doesn't serve us. Because that wouldn't be loving.
It wouldn't be. And I mean, I think some people might argue that it's okay to say it because it might come later, but I don't want to bet on something that perhaps comes later. I would like
There's no later, right? All we have is right this freaking moment.
I mean, if anything, that I, I have no other word. That's literally what it is. I don't want to say or agree or feel pressured into saying, especially when it comes to love for anything, in hopes that perhaps later on
Yeah.
something will develop or change or surface.
Yeah. That still feels like it's from lack.
Yeah.
Or fear in some capacity, right?
I think fear is probably the dominating factor in this.
Yeah.
But yeah. Uh,
So I guess this is like our public service announcement to say, you love wisely,
yeah.
love accurately, and then love fully.
And intentionally.
And intentionally.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I'm pulling up titles for the episode from the episodes themselves. So you just gave me several words to think about when I do that.
Well, I'm glad it worked.
Yes. Thank you so much. This is really rich. Like I feel like people are going to sit with this in ways they may not have imagined when they first press play. But that's great. That's what we want them to do. We want you all to leave here and do the tough work sometimes of, whatever our culture didn't provide for us here in America, we can develop and also influence the culture. We are co-creating this culture in real time. And this is one way that we can transform it with a very intentional love praxis.
Yeah. I'm
Thank
so
you
happy.
so much.
Thank
Yay.
you. I was very nervous, but I'm happy that we had a beautiful conversation.
You did wonderful. And I love you all out there, and I mean it. Ha!